you very much. I too would like to join in the welcoming of the Minister, in particular, Minister, your openness to all sports, and I like your emphasis today, obviously, on increasing the participation of women and young people in sport. I think it is something that we need to give greater attention to. You know, speakers before me have talked about the positive roles that sports play, and the benefits are endless. We have a very proud sporting tradition here in Ireland, and I think for me one of our proudest moments as a nation was undoubtedly the Special Olympics, which highlighted our national strengths and celebrated so many of our wonderful athletes. The benefits of sports has many positive effects in our society, and I think as legislators we have a role to increase participation and increase interest. And some of my colleagues have mentioned about the economic benefits. I suppose for me, I'd be more looking at the physical benefits, the mental well-being for us as a society and for us as a community. And if we can increase positive mental health, positive physical well-being, this will reduce healthcare spending in the long term, which obviously is something we'd all like to see. Minister, you've mentioned about the GAA, and I'm not going to get into the current debacle about pay-to-view and all of that, but you did mention about the emigrant clubs, and one person on Twitter said to me, perhaps I could ask about getting a greater involvement, though, from clubs who are emigrant clubs, who are really promoting the GAA away, that can they have a role here at home in some way to have a voice, that it's a two-way conversation that should be had. But like many of my colleagues, if we want to think of sport, I was certainly left on the edge of my seat when I was watching the Ireland and France in the Six Nations match. And I think it's that power that sport can have. I think we all became video refs that day in deciding whether it was a forward pass or not. So congratulations to our men's team, but also to our women's rugby team in their success last year. We have a fantastic history. Not just of the sports that have that history, but of new sports being developed. One example is the mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor, who's promoting it on a world stage and is acting as a role model to a different group of young people by promoting new sporting possibilities and the development of newer sports. I think we also have to encourage. I think for me it's imperative that we recognise the contribution of Irish women who may come to the sporting field and encourage participation. I think we all know about Katie Taylor in 2012, in London 2012, bringing back gold, and I think there was very little work done in the country while that fight was on. I think the participation of female in sports can be sometimes underreported. I would like to welcome the fact that RT has started to broadcast the women's rugby matches. I would like to see that other sports get equal relevance or equivalence. I'm not expecting it to be absolutely equal, but we do need to rise it up. And it is welcome in rugby, for example, that we see the women's matches are now being moved from relegated stadiums to the main stadiums, whether it's Wembley, Aviva, or wherever it's the stadium. And I think we should be encouraging this in other fields. We also see, for example, I was talking to one camogie player who is looking to be part of our women's rugby sevens in order to enter the Olympics. So there's now opportunities opening up in some of our sports to be part and to transfer in and to be part of the Olympics. And mentioning the Olympics, I would also like to mention the Paralympics. We see the development of sport in this area, and I was reading a fascinating article about wheelchair hurling and how that is developing. So the possibilities are endless for us here. And in preparing for today, I've learned more about ultimate frisbee and tag rugby. But I do also want to mention about cricket. It's become very popular. I think, when we see the successes at grassroots level in Ireland, I know many young people who are involved in cricket, and I think we need the welcome initiatives such as Get Into the Cricket Scheme, which has provided a significant boost to the game. And I think we should support all sports in order to enhance sporting choices in Ireland. And Minister, that's what I'd like to go on to the points that you raised, because one of the issues I have is that very often by the school you go to, especially if it's a small school, if you have a bigger school, you usually get a choice of sports. But in small schools, we don't get that choice of sports. So very often a child, they're either good or bad at that sport, and they may not necessarily get an exposure to other sports. And that's why I'd actually, if you saw my notes here, I wanted to raise the issue of the French municipalities and the Centre de Sportif, because I think that's something that we really need to look at, of bringing sports together in a community, because we do have to decide whether it's club or community is going to dominate. And I would like to see that communities would have a stronger role, and that as a state, when we are investing, we actually encourage organisations to come together. And you've mentioned about the GAA, but I can tell you in my own community, they are not the sole sporting who will have territorial rights on pitches, on turf that they have, that say, no, you cannot use it, even though those pitches lay idle during certain times of the day, certain times of the year. Sporting facilities we see that they have a dominance at one time, they lay idle, but they belong to that sporting discipline, so they cannot share it. And I do think we need to look at how we can encourage people to share. So when we are looking at the Sports Capital Grant, I think we should be asking a question: what other sports in the community will be able to use this facility when it is not actively being used by that particular sporting discipline? We really do, for me, have to encourage that we don't have this fragmentation, and that we give young people this opportunity, as they do in France, where you can have tennis, swimming, rugby, all these different sports under the one roof, together, working in harmony, rather than being seen to be in that competitive space, because we need to give young people an exposure to the different types of sports there are. An ending, Minister, I think well done on the Giro d'Italia. I really wish every success for Ireland for the tender for the Rugby World Cup. It's great to see us coming together as an island, to work together to hopefully bring it here for 2023. I think sport is of immense importance. I'd like to thank my colleagues in Fine Gael today for moving this motion. It's given me an opportunity to research more and to learn more, and I think that's something that we have a role to do as senators. And I just want to finish with a quote that I found from a US running legend, Dean Karnazes, which I think is quite powerful. He said, "Some seek the comfort of their therapist's office, others head to the corner pub and dive into a pint, but I choose running as my therapy." And I think that sums up sport, and I think that's what we should be encouraging people to get out, to be participating in a community. And that is what we should be looking for as a society. Thank you. Thank you, sir.